Welcome to myFace, myStory, Voices from the Craniofacial Community, with your host, Dina Zuckerberg.
Hello and welcome. You are tuned into myFace, myStory, Voices from the Craniofacial Community. Don't forget to click subscribe so that you'll never miss a future episode. I am Dina Zuckerberg, Director of Family Programs at myFace. I was born with a cleft lip, a hearing loss, and no vision in my left eye, but it has never stopped me from doing anything I've wanted to do in my life. I had 6 surgeries, years of orthodontics, and speech therapy growing up. I was teased in school. Kids would say mean things, and I would sit alone sometimes on the school bus and in the lunchroom. I always say there is power in the shared story, in knowing you're not alone. So anyone out there like me, I see you. We all do. It's about people like us being seen and heard, about sharing stories from the craniofacial community. Today, we celebrate 10 years of wonder. The young adult novel by R.J. Palacio is about a boy named August, also known as Augie Pullman, who has a craniofacial difference. His family includes parents, sister Olivia, and a dog named Daisy. He has been homeschooled by his mother up until the 5th grade. After coaching and encouragement from his family, Augie enters 5th grade in a mainstream school. He faces adversity and bullying, but also learns the meaning of true friendship. Augie also learns how to stand up for himself and inspires others to stand with him. When the book first came out, I read it in one sitting. Even though I didn't have the same condition as Augie, I could totally relate to being different in the world. I resonated with Augie and the book Wonder even from the first page when he talks about wishing he had a magic lamp. Because I remember when I was Augie's age, maybe a little younger, wishing on my birthday when I blew out the candle that I could look like the other kids so it would be a little easier for me. This book changed my life and the lives of so many others in the craniofacial community. And I am thrilled to be able to speak with our special guests about the impact this book and movie have had on millions of people worldwide. If this book had a big impact on your life too, please let us know by dropping a comment in the chat to share your experience. We would love to hear from you. And now I would like to introduce our special guest. R.J. Palacio, whose first name is Raquel, is the author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, Wonder, which has sold over 15 million copies worldwide and has won national and international awards. It was selected as one of the Time magazine's 100 best young adult books of all time. The book's message inspired the Choose Kind movement and has been embraced by readers around the world, with the book published in over 50 languages. Wonder was made into a blockbuster movie starring Julia Roberts, Owen Wilson, and Jacob Tremblay. Palacio's other New York Times best-selling books include Pony, 365 Days of Wonder, Mr. Brown's Book of Precepts, Augie and Me, 3 Wonder Stories, and the picture book Where Are Wonders, and the graphic novel Whitebird, which is currently being filmed as a major motion picture starring Gillian Anderson and Helen Mirren. Palacio lives in Brooklyn with her husband, 2 sons, and 2 dogs. Sandra Neuschotz graduated from Emory University with a BA in psychology. She received her MA in special education from Columbia University with a specialization in behavioral disorders. Sandra was born with a cleft lip, and 2 of her 3 children were born with a cleft lip and palate as well. Sandra serves on the board of trustees of myFace, where she is dedicated to spreading the message of kindness and acceptance as a presenter for the myFace Wonder Project. Mary Butters taught fourth grade for 10 years at PS 261 in Brooklyn before moving to New Jersey. She has taught third grade and now second grade at High Mountain Road School. Mary has read Wonder to her students each year and challenges them to always be a little kinder than necessary. The story of August Pullman connects with Mary's personal life as her own son was born with a cleft lip and palate. August and his family are very real to her, and they become very real to her students. Welcome, and thank you all for joining me today.
Hi.
Hi.
Gina.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me and everybody. It's so nice to see you.
So I want to start with Raquel. Can you tell us by sharing how you came to write Wonder? Talk about that.
Wow, it was so long ago now at this point that I feel like, God, it feels like another lifetime ago. But I was with my two little boys, and we were in front of an ice cream store not far from where I live. And my younger son was about 3. My younger son, who's 17 years old now, and he's upstairs doing his homework. But when he was 3 years old, we were in front of this ice cream store, and he was in the stroller, and a little girl sat down next to us, and she had, probably now afterwards I researched it was probably Treacher Collins. I didn't know at the time what it was. All I know is that my 3-year-old reacted. He got a little frightened. It was, really hard as a parent because my first instinct was basically to try to protect a little girl from seeing my son's response. And so what I did, and at the time it was just instinct, was to leave quickly. I took the stroller and I tried to leave quickly, and to try to avoid her noticing. And afterwards, though, I was haunted by that because I realized that it was just it was the wrong move. What I wish I had thought to do was to simply sort of, turn to the little girl and her mom and just say, hey, I'm sorry. Hey, shown my son by my response. Of course, there was nothing to be fearful about, nothing to cry about, nothing. I should have asked her what kind of ice cream she was, licking and all of that. But, life doesn't always come with an instruction manual. And I kind of blew that basic mom moment. And afterwards, I was really, really upset with myself for not having shown my son a better way. And that night, I was, after having long talks with my sons, and we were talking about all the different ways we should have responded, and how we should have just been kind. Natalie Merchant's song "Wonder" came on the radio, and it was something about that song and the optimism of that song, which is all about some child that is born with an unspecified difference that makes her a wonder in the world. And it just filled me with optimism and love. And I just, I thought, oh, I think this is a story. I'm going to write a book. And that's how I started writing that night.
We're so glad you did.
Yes. So when you wrote Wonder, did you do any research or speak to members of the craniofacial community? Because I think you so captured perfectly what it was like to live with a facial difference.
Thank you. I started writing before, like I said, I started writing that very night. Right. Because I wasn't, it was kind of almost like when you workshop a story, you don't really know where it's going to go. You're just kind of writing thoughts and feelings down, and for some reason the character of Augie Pullman came to me like literally right away, and so I started writing probably 40 pages into it, and then because in the beginning, we don't really know what Augie's condition is. He doesn't spend a lot of time really talking about it. It's not until we get to Via's point of view that, Via being the sort of pragmatic, see things for the way they are, that we as readers actually learn that what Augie, the condition he has, and that he has TCS and some unspecified craniofacial difference that makes him a wonder, blah, blah, blah. But so it was at that point that I realized that I needed to really, really spend a lot of time researching the medical stuff and really delving into the craniofacial community, which was already so strong and had such an online presence. I met you before the book was published as well. So I visited the NYU Langone Center. What was the name of the Dr. McCarthy?
Yes.
Who was amazing, so I spoke with and Pat and Chibaro, and so I did as much research as I could. I did not want to. I was afraid a little bit of actually focusing too much or meeting people who would maybe make the story too much their own if I did that. I didn't want to actually have one specific child in mind when writing. So I did not interview a lot of families with kids who had Treacher Collins right now in the present day, just because I kind of wanted my mind to sort of be able to work on a sort of open playing field. But otherwise, I spent a lot of time researching. Yes, that was a long-winded answer. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay.
The answer is yes, I did.
It's very interesting to hear, because I always actually wondered, I never really quite asked you that question before. So do you remember the moment when you found out your book was on the New York Times bestseller list, and what was that like for you?
I do, because it was so, it was really unexpected. I have to tell you, I've been in book publishing. I worked in book publishing. I had a full-time book publishing job when I wrote Wonder. And when it came out, it was published by a different publisher. And so first of all, I know how hard it is to get on the bestseller list, but I also know that when Wonder was purchased, when it was acquired by my editor, it wasn't considered a big book at all. It was, what's called mid-list. It's a book for which they paid a very small advance. It was not, at the time, all the books on the bestseller list for YA, for young adult, were, Hunger Games and Twilight and books about fairies and vampires and fantasy and dystopian stuff. And so this real-time contemporary novel about a boy with a facial difference, it didn't have any of the makings of being a bestseller. So when it hit the bestseller list, it was a month, I think, that it had been out, and suddenly it was on the bestseller list. I do remember I screamed. I could not believe it. It was really, I was so happy that people were reading it, because I didn't think anyone would, except for, maybe some people I know, some friends, family, and, a couple of people, but I just didn't know what to expect.
Yeah. So we actually have a comment. Thank you, Raquel. Your book was and continues to be life-changing for our children and their families.
Thank you.
So to follow up on that, your book has, as we know, has gained enormous worldwide following. Why do you think it has resonated with so many around the world? The fact that it's caught on so quickly suggests that it's filled a need people had. Do you think that's the case? Yeah,
I think that I think part of the appeal has been that everyone reading it can hopefully find somebody that they can relate to. If it's not Augie, it's one of the other characters, because it's told from different points of view. And so I think young people reading it, they can know who they are, and they can kind of imagine how they would be. Are they going to be a Summer? Are they going to just rise, just be friendly to this new kid starting school, or are they going to be a Julian? I think part of the appeal is that so many kids can see themselves, if not in the main character, in one of the many other characters from whose point of view we actually hear. We hear their points of view and stuff. But I also think that because I've gotten emails from people in the craniofacial community, but also from parents of children with autism, parents of children who have all kinds of other differences. And I think ultimately, even though, yes, it's about a child with a craniofacial difference very specifically, it's also about being different. And that, I think, is something that a lot of people can relate to,
Yeah.
whatever the difference is. I think a lot of people can sort of understand what it's like to be, the new kid in school, the unpopular kid, what it's like to be, have friends betray you, what it's like to, all of the things that Augie experiences and the community around him. There are things that I think everyone can relate to. And I think that that's probably part of the appeal of Wonder.
I agree. I think it really, anybody I know who's read it really resonates with it in one way or another. I think, and that's what I think is the beauty of this book. It really speaks to so many. I actually have a couple other questions, but I want to come back to them. I want to
Sure.
now talk to Mary. Mary, do you remember the first time you read Wonder and what that was like for you as a parent of a child with a cleft lip and palate? And
Okay.
then did you resonate with the mom in the book as well?
So it's interesting. I was given the book. I do this thing with my class. This was several years ago, where if they've read a good book and they want to share it, they have to write a book summary. And after they write the summary, they have to explain why this is such a great book. And then I pick a few that I think are really good. Before one of my students even filled out the form, she just said to me, "Mrs. Butters, you must read this story." So I said to her, "Well, why is that, Lily?" I said, "It's really not on our grade level." I said, "It's a higher read." And she said, "It is the best story I have ever read." So I said, "Okay, I'm going to read it." And I hesitated a little because I felt it was a little too close to my heart. And then I read it. And it, of course, resonated with me, and it would resonate with any parent. As Raquel said, children are different for many, many different reasons, whether someone has a physical condition or whether they have any sort of condition or whether they feel different for whatever reason, and the world doesn't see their difference, but they know what their difference is. I read it and I just thought to myself, what a gift, not only to people in the craniofacial community, but to every child, because every child can connect to this. And I think any mom can connect to this story and just really feel for August and feel for the other characters in the book as well, because they're all going through something.
Yeah, I think that's right. Even from Via's perspective, as someone, a sibling in the story. So why then was it important for you to introduce this book to your students? I know you had read it with them year after year.
So I think part of the responsibility for parents and teachers is to grow a community and to grow a community that is kind and compassionate and loving and tries to understand people and appreciate who they are from the inside out. And so August is like this prime example of this just wonderful, wonderful person who's not given a shot because of what he looks like on the outside. But then people get to know him and they get to know this quality of person. And I think that it's also important for people just to really think and choose their words wisely and to understand what someone else might be going through. I think oftentimes children don't realize when they're staring at someone or someone frightens them, what that other person might be experiencing. And through reading the book, we do a pause and think. There are so many parts in the book with the children who I think are so open to this idea of acceptance. They'll stop and say, "Wow, that's amazing. I hadn't thought of how that person might have felt, or I've done that. I've seen someone that's different and I've pointed, or I've looked away, or I've run away because it frightened me." They don't really think. They didn't think about what that might do to the other person. And I think it's an important lesson in life to be kind and compassionate. And I think this book really that lesson is beautifully, it's beautifully written. It's a beautifully crafted book told from many, many different viewpoints. And I think that whether, like Raquel said, whether you've connected with August or one of the other characters, I think that everyone can connect with someone in that story, and really kind of just think of ways to be a better person.
Can I just first of all, thank you for that. But I just wanted to add too that when I wrote Wonder, my older son had just finished 5th grade. And 5th grade in Brooklyn, at least this is where he switches to middle school, just like Augie. He does not have a craniofacial difference, but it was a really, really difficult year for him. And what you said is so true. What I really, because we try to raise our children with for me, with my kids, kindness was the number one thing. It's something we talked about. It's something that we made an effort to think about. But what I found as a mom or as a parent, sort of looking at 5th grade unfold, is that not every family is on the same page about that.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I really did want to introduce in Wonder was the idea of introducing kindness as something that's a thoughtful presence in our lives, something that we actually have to think about, remind our kids about, and also model. And so, and again, that was just my son had a really tough 5th grade year, and it, for a number of reasons, but it was just, I think it's something we all face. And ultimately, if we can respond to any sort of in any situation with kindness, we're ahead of the game. And that's kind of one of the things so thank you for bringing that up, because that is exactly one of the purposes for me of the book. I wanted to write about kindness, and I wanted to inspire kids to be kinder to one another.
And it's your statement about parents, it's their responsibility to teach that at home. Well, it's interesting, when the Julian character came up, the kids all gasped when I got to the part where the mom had photoshopped August out of the class picture. And I remember one child saying, "Now I know why Julian is so mean." And the kids just couldn't believe how horrible this woman was.
Yeah.
And that, she didn't want him in the school. And I thought that, boy, that was brilliant, because, kids, their hearts are so open. Mm-hmm. And, they many times could teach adults lessons about being kind and about being accepting. And that was brilliant. And the kids actually said, now I know why he's the way he is. So, really. And I didn't have to say a word. The kids just all gasped.
Yeah.
So Mary, we have a question from the audience. Do you find that the kids today are more accepting than 5 or 10 years ago, or even 15? Or are they still the same, or are there still the same hurdles with meeting kids in person, or does that all happen online now, which may be even worse?
Well, I can say in the classroom, in my classroom, I go out of my way. I have a caught being kind, right? So if you're caught being kind, you get your photo up on the star, and each time you do something really nice, you get an additional star. So that's reinforced in my classroom. But, I think people are a little more aware now than maybe they were when my son was growing up. And the comments that maybe were made to him when he was growing up, I think that maybe the crowd wouldn't accept it as much today. But again, I think it goes back to the home. If at home you're taught to be kind at a very young age, it just becomes a natural way of being. It becomes part of who you are.
Right.
And I think that's at the heart of it. I really do. I think that it's a parent's responsibility, and it's also the school's responsibility not to tolerate anyone who's being mean, but also to reward those who have gone the extra mile for a friend.
I agree.
And I try to do that in my classroom. I try to, make everyone understand that we're all going through something, and kind words can go a long way. A good morning and a smile can go a long way. especially
Absolutely.
if somebody's going through something, and especially if someone is different.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I say that to the students that I speak to all the time. So Sandra, what was it like for you the first time you read Wonder, and how did it impact you as both someone who was born with a cleft lip as also a mom to two children with a cleft lip and palate?
So I believe, well, if it's 10 years, it came out in 2012.
Right.
And my kids were 12 and 13 at the time. And so they were reading it in school. So I was reading it and they were reading it in school. I think I took a lot more out of it. I know that they loved the book. I also know that my kids, being born with a cleft lip and palate, never wanted to see themselves as different from anyone else and didn't really talk about it that much. So there wasn't much discussion about it. I know that it was a heartwarming story for them. I know that they read it more than once. But I felt like, wow, after having been born with a cleft lip and being in the trenches with 2 out of 3 of my kids going through exactly the same thing, but 25 years later, I was so protective of them, and I didn't want them to go through what I had gone through. And I do believe that the world is a little kinder now, and that a lot of my work outside of myFace, I work with children teaching social emotional skills, and I think that has become a very big piece of the world today, thank goodness, and people are more aware. I like to believe that RJ kind of started that with her book and gave a little nudge. But I think, like you said, Dina, it really changed. It brought light to the craniofacial community outside of our little bubble. And I think it opened a lot of people's eyes. And I loved the way you wrote it from all the different people's points of view. There was just so much in there.
Thank you. Yeah, I really wanted to be able to show from all the, because originally when I started the book, as I said, I didn't know where it was going to go. And then at a certain point, as an author, I was so curious about Via. Like I knew what she was thinking, but I thought, well, if I'm curious about her and I want to know more, the reader's going to want to know more. And so it was, I remember so specifically that moment when I took because I thought the manuscript was going okay. And I was so afraid of going in the wrong direction. But I decided to go ahead and start writing the Via chapter, with the hopes that it would work. And then it worked. But I really think that the book wouldn't have been Wonder had it not included the perspectives of the community around Augie as well. I think that
Absolutely.
I wanted to tell Augie's story, but not just from his perspective. I thought to fill it out, I thought he really needed to sort of be seen both from within and from without. But anyway, it was a leap of faith.
And it was brilliant.
Thank you.
From a mom's point of view, from Via's point of view, where I have 3 children, I was born with a cleft lip. 2 out of 3 of my children were born with cleft lip and palate. And in my family, it was sort of the norm. And my daughter that was born naturally developing felt like a odd man out in our family, so for her reading the story, she heard what Via was saying. And for so many families, there's siblings involved, and there's a lot of different perspectives. So
Pat Chabaro, who you all know, told me that after reading Wonder, I think it reminded her and all the nurses who are working with pediatric patients, and that there's usually a sibling in the waiting room, that has to be tended to as well. That it's the mom and the dad, and but there's always someone patiently sort of reading a textbook in the waiting room, waiting for the surgery to be finished, or waiting for the parent to be done, and so that and I'm glad. I'm glad that the siblings were sort of also elevated as well, because it much of it impacts as you will all know, it's an entire family. It's an entire family dynamic. It's a family thing,
It is.
So.
So, Raquel, we have a question. Did you ever get a chance to formally meet and talk with the girl and her parents that you saw at the ice
No,
cream parlor?
I went back. So after I sort of left the scene, got home, talked to my son, and we spoke for I don't know, half an hour. Again, this was a while ago. And then I went back to the ice cream store because I was hoping that I could maybe, because I don't think the little girl realized anything that had happened, to be totally truthful. She was like 6 or 7 years old. But I was pretty sure that the mom had caught on to what had happened. I know that she knew. And as a mom, I get tearful just thinking about it. And so I went back to the ice cream store to see if they were still there. They weren't. I went inside to the cashier to see if they, because I've never seen that little girl in the neighborhood, so they must have been passing through. Over the years, I've told the story many times, and I've gotten emails, like probably half a dozen, maybe more, emails from people who say, I think I was the little girl. They're
wow.
they claim that moment, and and then we'll do the math, and it's like, well, I think a little girl was 6 or 7. I was, and I tell them the location of the ice cream store, and so no, I have never. I don't think, maybe it was one of them. I don't know, but I don't think I've never formally met the girl. No.
So what would you say to that girl if you saw her today, if you did meet her, had the opportunity to?
I would say, well, obviously I would say thank you,
Mm-hmm.
but I want to be careful about that too, because then I might have someone saying, well, I didn't do anything. I'm not here to be your inspiration. So, and I honor that, and I understand that. But I guess I know what I would say to the mom. I would apologize. I still would apologize for not having handled the situation better, for not having stayed, and not having just I'll tell you a very quick little story. So I've told this story many times, and there was I was speaking to a large crowd, and there was a book signing event afterwards, and this woman with her 10 or 11-year-old child was waiting very patiently on the line. And I could tell, sometimes people get very emotional at these the book signings, and when we talk about wonder, and I could tell she was emotional, and the moment she got to me, she was very emotional, and she said that she thanked me, but she said her whole life she thought that all those moms who were sort of taking their children away quickly in the strollers was to have their kids avoid seeing her. This was the first time it occurred to her. She realized that maybe it was actually some kind of kindness that they were trying to show, that they were actually trying to protect her feelings as a child. And that's when I realized that she was born with her hands were malformed, and her child's hands were malformed. That was her difference, and anyway, that really got to me, because I realized that, people are carrying around these notions, maybe, and that are based on misunderstandings, which are based on people's imperfections. That was a moment for me of being completely an imperfect parent. And I wouldn't want that little girl, if I had the chance to see her, to think that it had anything to do with her. It was me. It was me and my reaction that sort of that prompted all of this. So anyway, I get emotional speaking about all this sometimes. So I'll pass the baton to someone else. Go ahead.
Thank you. So before we run out of time, I do want to ask you, Sandra, can you share with us about the myFace Wonder Project, which is something I've loved working with you on?
Yeah. Absolutely. Dina and I have been doing this together for years. It's one of my favorite things to do. We've spoken to how many thousands of kids across the country. In Canada, we now are going to South Africa and Poland, and it all spurs from the book Wonder and choosing kind. And the goal of the Wonder Project, it's an assembly that Dina and I do with a Q&A afterwards, and it's to provide the students with the tools that they need to learn how to become upstanders, which is a new word that was just put in the dictionary recently. We've all heard of being a bystander, which is when you stand by and watch something happen. But an upstander is someone that actually does something and stops the bullying from happening by taking the child away or by saying stop it. Or and we all know everyone could use more upstanders in their lives. So it gives them the tools and the language to learn what an upstander is, how to become upstanders, and how to unite against bullying. And it's typically for 4th to 7th grade community, although Dina and I have spoken to kids as young as kindergarten and as old as 12th grade. And there's a message there for everyone, from the kindergartner to the adult, frankly. And I love doing it. The kids, like you said, Mary, their hearts are open. They just want to be kind. And some of it is just not knowing, and so when Dina and I come in and we introduce them to some of the patients that we help and their differences, and, just because they might look different or they hear different or they speak different or they eat different or they may need help breathing, inside they're just like me and you. And sometimes just hearing this just resonates with the kids. And oftentimes when kids I find that when the bullies, when kids aren't nice to one another, oftentimes it comes out of fear and not understanding. And I do remember the times when I was young and, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade, when kids weren't so nice to me and the teachers would intervene. And pretty much all the teachers had to do was explain it and then talk about how, Sandra loves to run around on the playground also. And, Sandra likes rainbows too. And, that's all it took to make that connection. And a lot of times it's just that fear, never being exposed to it, never knowing anything about it. So I really think that slowly, Dina, we're changing the world one kid at a time, making the world a kinder place. And RJ, thank you for giving us this platform to launch off of, because it really is it's what I talk about with everyone that knows me. And it's one of the things in my life that I hold close to my heart.
And I honestly, I think that it should be required reading, because,
Absolutely.
There are a handful of books that teach people how to be good people. And this is absolutely one of them. And, there's so many important takeaways from this book. To really see someone for who they are as a person, rather than what you're seeing on the outside, to see someone from the inside out. It's a gift. This book is truly a gift. And for anyone that feels different in any way. And you can look at people and think, well, how are they different? How can they possibly feel different? But everyone's going through their own struggle. And when you read this book, the kids will all say, well, I felt that way. I know what it's like to have a friend betray me. It's not a good thing. It's really sad. And Jack will, when he betrays Augie, that tugs at the heartstrings. The kids just can't believe he did it. They don't understand why he would have done it. And it's kind of good to show that even good people can make mistakes. And how do they fix those mistakes? Because that's another lesson in life. You've made a mistake. Now, any mistake you can make, you can try to correct, and you can try to go back and fix it and be better. And that's a great lesson for anyone, that you can do better.
One bad action does not make you a bad kid.
Correct.
At all. It's a mistake, and you can move on and learn from it. So.
Right. They're all learning opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And it's a great book to have a book discussion about, because really kids will open up and they will say, I felt that way. or it's really a terrible thing. And I will say, like, what qualities do you want in a friend? And Augie's all of those things. All of those things. And that's the brilliance of the book, that he is everything you would want in a friend. And so much more.
The reason he's a wonder isn't because of his craniofacial difference, I think. The reason he's a wonder is because he's just like the most amazing kid. I mean, he's just like, he's funny and he's great and he's an incredible friend. He's not perfect by any means. You know, he's a little spoiled, let's face it. But he's a really great kid. And that makes him a wonder in every way, you know. So I think if kids could aspire to be like Augie, they're already headed in the right direction.
And you know, it's so funny. Dina asked earlier if there was any part of the book that really resonated. When Isabel says, "You're a wonder," I feel that way about my own son. He's all of those things that Augie is, all of those things. And I think part of it was his journey, and also just who he is: funny, bright, caring, forgiving, all of those things, everything you would want in a friend.
And we talked about this earlier, that in a way, adversity is the one greatest teaching tool, hard as it can be. But I do think that kids who face some sort of challenges, oftentimes they just grow to be the strongest, greatest people because they've endured. You know, they know that they have, I mean, Augie, by the end of 5th grade, knows that he has whatever he needs to get through the worst in life. You know, he's been there. He got through 5th grade. And I think that kind of adversity is something that makes kids really, that's that special thing that we can't even name sometimes when we meet someone, but we know they have it.
So true.
Absolutely.
So we are slowly running out of time, but I do want to address two things. One is, Raquel, I know that one of your newer books, Whitebird, is being made into a movie, and that has to do with Julian's story. Can you share a little bit about that?
Well, just very briefly, Whitebird, it does take the story of Julian, you know, the bully, the mean kid in Wonder, and it's his kind of journey, sort of understanding the negative impact he had, and turning him around. And the person to do that, because we spoke about how his mom and dad are like clueless when it comes to trying to teach his kid to be a better human being. His grandmother, his grandmère, is the one who actually is able to reach him. And she shares with him a story of her challenges when she was growing up in the Holocaust as a young Jewish girl who has to go into hiding in occupied France. So Whitebird tells the grandmère story, but it also connects us back to Julian and ultimately Augie. So it's a sort of story within a story. I have seen a director's cut already, and it is magnificent. I just want to just get everybody like ready for it's like incredible. So get your hankies out.
And it's coming out in the fall. It's going to be
in the fall, yeah, September.
Right.
I hear. You know, who knows? I mean, the world right now is so tense. Everything is so tentative. But tentatively, I think it's supposed to come out this fall.
Great. So Raquel, congratulations on the 10th anniversary illustrated edition of Wonder that will be coming out next month on February 15th. What new features can we look forward to in the 14th? What new features can we look forward to in that special edition?
Well, my favorite part is the introduction by Dina Zuckerberg. That is my absolute favorite part. And, you know, it was the publisher's idea to actually do an illustrated edition, which with illustrations by Tad Carpenter, who did the cover of the book. So there are probably, I don't know, like 20 illustrations throughout the text, which I think brings a really an incredible like added dimension to it, you know. And in a way, you know, I love the movie and stuff, but that was Stephen Chbosky's vision of my book, you know. So obviously when you translate one medium to another, there are going to be changes, scenes that happen in different places than the way they're described in the book. The illustrated version of the book is obviously an illustrated version of my words, of my text. So it's kind of interesting to see some of these scenes play out the way they were written. So I'm really excited to see it. I haven't seen it yet. So, but I've seen pages and it looks amazing. So I'm really excited.
Great. Well, I'm truly honored that you asked me to write the introduction to the book, and I can't wait to see it in print and share it with the world. So thank you for that
Thank you.
opportunity. And just so the readers know, the people watching and listening, you can pre-order the book on Amazon.com or your local bookstore. So before we wrap up, I want to ask each of you to share one of your favorite Mr. Brown precepts.
Oh, there's so many.
If you have one, and if you don't have one, that's okay. But
mine is oh God, I'm gonna get it wrong though. It's be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle.
That was on my list. Mine is the teaching of Buddha. No, thousands of candles can be lit from a single candle, and the life of the single candle will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. I think that's beautiful and can be unpacked.
Absolutely.
And Mary, did you have one?
Yeah, I do. I try to live by this. Do all the good you can, by all the means you can, in all the ways you can, in all the places you can, at all the times you can, for all the people you can, for as long as you can. And sometimes just a simple smile and telling someone, have a great day, can turn their day around. And I think that's a message that we all need, young and old.
Absolutely.
Choose kind.
Choose kind. Yeah. It's
amazing
to me. Yes. And it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me how it's become such a movement in the world, the Choose Kind movement. And,
when it hit me, it would hit me when I saw a billboard in Times Square that said choose kindness. Yeah. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. It's changing lives. So absolutely. So we've run out of time. I could go on with so many more questions, but I really want to thank each of you for sharing so much of yourself today and every day. And I'm hopeful that these conversations can help others better understand our stories while also creating a kinder world for all people with craniofacial differences, and truthfully all differences, because we all are different in one way or another. But hopefully we can unite in being kind to all. So thank you so much for joining me today. And
thank you, Dina.
Yes.
Thanks, Dina.
Thank
you. And these conversations have taken place over the last 10 years, thanks to the publication of Wonder, have without question led to a shift in how people talk about and think about craniofacial differences. And for that, we thank you, Raquel. And for 70 years, myFace has been dedicated to changing the faces and transforming the lives of children and adults with facial differences by providing access to holistic, comprehensive care, education, resources, and support that pave the way for better outcomes. To learn more, please visit myface.org. And if you would like to learn more about the myFace Wonder Project and bring a virtual assembly to your school or community, please visit myface.org/wonder. Again, that's myface.org/wonder. And if you would like to sponsor a school at the 350 level so that we can bring the program to all schools, please consider making a donation by visiting myface.org/wonder and scroll down to sponsor a school. If you haven't already done so, be sure to subscribe to myFace's YouTube channel to catch future live broadcasts of myFace, myStory. You can also listen to the audio recording of your favorite podcast on your favorite podcast app, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. If you'd like to learn more or to receive email reminders of new episodes, sign up at myface.org myStory. That's myface.org/mystory. Thank you.